got to play under Mark Bosnich, who went on to England and played over in Europe. But at the same time, I was sort of delving into the fine art of drug taking.
How do you move on from past mistakes? And more than that, how do you overcome them? How do you learn from them and use them to live a better life? Now, Richard was given some incredible opportunities early in his life, but for a number of reasons, including self-doubt, he instead took a very destructive path.
Yeah, stuff that I've never spoken to anybody about.
I speak to Richard today, and it's an incredible story of how he was able to come back from some big mistakes and now be living a fulfilling life. It's a great joy to bring you this interview, this story of Richard's life. Richard, thanks for meeting with me today.
Yeah, cheers, man.
So tell me about some of the interesting opportunities you've had in your lifetime.
So at school I was always really good at music.
Yep.
And I got the chance to play. I was in year 7 or year 8. I got a chance to play in the year 12 high school exam because the bass player had got glandular fever and he couldn't play. So I got asked to play. So that was my first probably 15 minutes of fame playing on stage in front of people.
Yeah.
And one of the examiners actually came up to me afterwards and gave me a card and said, as soon as you're finished school, I want you to come and apply at the Conservatorium of Music. That's as far as that went.
Okay. Yeah, didn't follow that up.
Look, at the time I was getting involved with drugs. So it became what was more important to me at the time, and that was getting drugs and partying. And I kind of looked at the Conservatorium and thought, I can't be a rock god if I'm going to this Conservatorium. So, you know, I've got to follow my dreams and become a heavy metal rock god. And didn't go too well.
So that didn't work out?
No.
What happened next? What presented itself next?
I was playing soccer. Similar timing. I was playing for a team in Sydney, and I got the chance to play in quite a good tournament. I was goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And I'd gone through the whole season. I'd let one goal in the whole season, and then we went on to this trophy series.
Wow.
And we ended up playing in the finals, and we were under 10s or something like that, and we played against under 17s, and it was the only game we lost, and we lost 4-3. So they gave us 3-goal head start. We lost 4-3.
Right.
But I got offered to go to Marconi in Liverpool and train as potential goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And got to play under Mark Bosnich, who went on to England and played over in Europe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was sort of delving into the fine art of drug taking, and it was a bad time. I was trying to hide from stuff. And,
so you said no to it?
Yeah, I just gave up because I didn't think I was going to be good enough, and same as giving up on going to Conservatorium.
Was there a bit of self-doubt involved?
Oh, there was a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd been abused as a kid, so it was all about I was angry, and if anybody showed interest in what I was doing, it was sort of like it was a rebel against them, as if to go, well, you think I'm good at this, but I'll show you wrong. I'll prove you wrong.
Right.
So even the good opportunities I got, I just wrecked them. I was on just self-destruction. That's all it was just pure self-destruction.
And when you look back on those times, what's your feeling about them now?
It's all good to look back, but hindsight's a good thing, isn't it? You can't sort of wallow about it, because it just gets you down. So you just got to kind of look at it and go, well, that's a mistake. What do I learn from that? And
what have you learned?
Number one, don't do drugs.
Yeah. Yep.
Just to, I don't know, it's probably only in the last maybe 10 or so years that I've sort of come to grips with the whole of what happened. I actually went and saw somebody and sort of dealt with it a lot. I've never bothered chasing it up or following it up. I don't see the point. It's too long ago. It's, I don't need to get justice about it. And I don't know who's another person or whoever it is. I mean, I don't even know who it is.
Right.
They could be dead, could be, So I just leave it up to God to deal with it.
Yep.
In His time. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, have you had opportunities that you've been able to take later in life?
So just because my life's always been about music, so it's all been about performing, playing, whatever it is, anything to do with music, and I'm there. So I got the opportunity to join a team back in Hillsong, and just sort of worked my way up through the ranks and made it on team playing, and got the opportunity to actually sing on one of Hillsong's albums. I was only choir, but I sang.
Hey.
So I was there. I was on the album. So I was one of the choir men up in the back corner. But yeah, so that was sort of just sort of God taking what I did have and just sort of working with that and showing me that I can actually do something worthwhile.
And so now you see opportunities. Are they things that are given to you, or are they things you make happen?
Look, some things have been given, but some things I have to make for myself. You can't just sort of sit around and wait for God to show you stuff. You've got to sort of take a step out over the cliff.
Yeah.
And if he wants it to happen, he'll open the door and he'll make it happen. If he doesn't want it to happen, he'll close the door and you go looking at the next opportunity.
What do you mean by closing a door? What does that look like?
Well, it's just a fight back. Like when we moved up here to Queensland, I'd really been praying to God. There was something in my heart that wasn't right. There was something that was unsettled. I didn't feel right about where we were. Work was hit and miss. I wasn't enjoying my job. Was struggling with the church that we were in. I just said to God, look, if you want us to move, do something about it. I just don't feel we're in the right spot. And I spoke to Kat about it. And she said, well, why don't you go looking for a job? So I started looking around, and I didn't even think about it, but I saw this job, and it just happened to be up here in Queensland. And I said to Kat, I'd really like to go for that job, but if I got it, would you be keen to move to Queensland? And she was keen to get away from a family.
Right.
So we said, well, let's just play it out, play it by ear. And I've been praying to God about it and saying, hey, if you want this to happen, open the door, make it happen, or close it. So I made some phone calls, and they were sort of like, when can you get up here? Well, happy to see you. I said, well, look, if I get the job, I'm happy to move. We're happy to relocate up here. But Kat was quite worried because it's a big thing to sell up, move some 1 and 2 year old kids interstate. And so I just said, okay, I did a phone interview and did really well. And they said, we're really keen to get you on board. Will you come up and do another interview up here? And if it's all good, we'll sign you up straight away. And so I said to Kat, I think this is something that's God's got in mind, because if it wasn't, why would he make it to go up there? And I said, you know what, I think we need to take the jump and follow it.
Yeah.
I had a good feeling about it.
Yeah.
And so we just started selling everything. So we pretty much sold pretty much everything. Wow. Kat was kind of still living in the house in South Australia, just sort of working around boxes and stuff. And I flew up here to Queensland and had the interview, and 4 hours later, I was talking to Kat on the phone saying,
Yeah.
get rid of everything else, jump on a plane.
You were already making the jump before you knew for certain.
Yeah. I just, it felt like the right thing to do. Like I just felt a peace.
And looking back, that confirmed that,
the job didn't work out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it opened up a bunch of opportunities for new things, and I think it was God saying, "Do you really trust me? Do you really? You say you want to follow me, but do you really trust me?" And I think it was that I stepped over the cliff, and I could have fallen and hit the ground, but it didn't happen.
No.
And so He had a plan for something else, and in the next job took me to work at a Caterpillar, and then from Caterpillar I started working for the company I'm working for now. So it was that progressive.
Yeah. So checking things out, has that been something you've seen in other parts of your life where you've explored avenues that seemed to open up and it worked out or didn't work out?
Yeah. I'm not one to. I know a lot of people will kind of sit there and really sort of nut it out. Is this the right thing to do? Is it not the right thing to do? I tend to go, all right, this isn't working. Focus on something else. All right, that seems like a good idea. Let's just go gung ho and just go for it. If it doesn't, then God's going to close the door or He's going to open the door. I've never had a problem with work. I've never had a problem with employment. God's always been there. He's never had me, ever since I came back to God, He's never had me out of work.
Tell me about that journey back to God.
Okay, so I'd given my mum 2 nervous breakdowns and been asked to leave the house and never come back. I was living with 2 mates. I was living on their couch, and we were doing karaoke 3 nights a week. We were drinking, we were taking excessive amounts of drugs. We were just full on party mode. Live on the dole. We're making our money off of karaoke. It's surprising you can actually make a living off of karaoke. And yeah, that's how we're living. I wrecked my car in a car park, drunk, trying to do donuts, just stupid stuff like that. And I was going downhill really, really quickly. And then what sort of tipped it off was one of the guys that let me into his house. It was my son's birthday coming up, and I stole his card and went and withdrew money out of his account so I could buy my son a birthday present. And he found out about it, and that was it. And I totally understand it. At the time, I was just doing stupid stuff, but he just said, "No, that's it. I'm done." So I was now on the street with 2 bags, nowhere to go, nothing left.
Wow.
I was in rock bottom. I was at rock bottom,
literally.
and I was angry at everybody.
Yeah.
And I happened to be walking past one of the Hillsong satellite services.
Yeah.
And I can hear the music coming out, and I'm saying to myself, they don't know what they're playing. I can play better than that. I should go over and show them how to play music.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I was walking past, this guy walks out, and he calls my name, and I look at him, and I didn't realise who it was, and he's calling. He's going, "Richard, come here." And I'm looking at him going, "I don't know you. Who the hell are you?"
Yeah, right.
Anyway, I thought, "Oh, what the hell?" So I started walking across the road, and he goes, "Come on, I'll make you a coffee." And I'm like, okay. And as I got closer to him, I realised who it was. And it was the guy that I first ever bought drugs from when I was 11 years old.
Wow, and he recognised you.
And he recognised me. Now, he had gone off. He'd been on heroin. He'd been in jail. His dad, I think, was one of the first people to pioneer ram raids back in Sydney, in the day. And they were really hooked up in King's Cross and what was going on in there. So the guy that introduced me to drugs was the guy that stepped out of a church and said, "Come over here." And as I got closer to him, I sort of looked, and he was really well dressed, hair nice, just just looked clean. And I looked at him and I go, mate, what's the go here?
Yeah.
And he said, I'll just come in, I'll explain it to you in a minute. Just come in and grab a coffee. And as I walked into the church, as I stepped across the doorway, I'd had voices in my head. I actually thought I was going insane. And there was voices in my head saying, they went from, they just, immediately as I crossed the door, the voices in my head said, well and done, good and faithful servant. I'm so glad to have you back.
Well done, good and faithful servant.
I'm so glad.
Do you know where that came from?
I know now.
Yeah.
But as soon as I heard that, I just walked up the front and just got down on my knees and went,
really? Just like that?
Yeah, God, you've got me.
So were you aware of God's presence before all of that?
I was baptised when I was 9.
Yep.
We used to go to a church. Parents used to take me to a church. And then very, very shortly after that is when the abuse happened.
Right, yeah.
And then I just went rampant.
So that was the trigger.
Yeah. And I just went, I tried to kill myself before I was 18. I was dead set on I wasn't making it to my 18th. Then I made it to my 18th and I went, well, I'm definitely not going to make it till I'm 21. And I went even harder. Then I hit 21. I'm like, well, I've run out of ideas.
Right. Did you try and reach out to God at all during that time since the abuse? No, you.
And the whole time, every time I did something stupid, like I was getting into fights, I was just bashing people because I was so angry. I was car surfing down the highway on the backs of cars, falling off onto the highway and scratching myself up and banging my head on gutters and all sorts of crazy things. And every time I went to do something, there was this voice in my head saying, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. And I'm just like, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, I'd see, you see that the angel on one side and the devil on the other side, and you're talking. That's what I thought. And I just thought the drugs that I'd taken, the stuff that I was doing, it was getting to me, and I was going to end up in an institution at some point, or dead, one of the two.
Can you see why, looking back, you went down that track and you just went completely?
Yeah, because it was like, how could I mean, for 9-year-old, it's there's not a lot of comprehension about God, but you get baptized, so you think everything's gonna be fine, and then that happens, and it's like, well, screw you, and screw everybody else.
Gave God a try, didn't work.
Yeah, and I was going to go completely opposite, and I did a good job of it. I admit I did a really good job of going the opposite way, but it was not until probably about 3 or 4 years, only a couple of years after I came back to God, I was sitting down with my parents. So I started to build a relationship back with my parents, and they were sort of quite shocked that, 18 or so years or 20 years or however long it had been, it was like, oh, you're going back to church, are you? Yeah. That's interesting. We'll see how this plays out.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there talking to my dad, and he turned around and he said, I'm so grateful. He said, I've spent the last 17.5 years praying for you every single day.
Really?
And it started to drop that every time he was praying, God was sending the Holy Spirit to say, you don't need to do the stuff you're doing. And it just all kind of made sense. It was like Dad was praying on my behalf. God was looking after me, because seriously, I should have been in jail or dead. Some of the stuff that I got involved in, I should have been dead. And, like I said, I crossed that door, and it was just the voices in my head that I thought that I was going to sign myself into an assignment changed, and it was instant.
Just that one step, step into a church for you was like you were making a decision in that process. Yeah. So then God met you there. Yeah. And it all changed.
And that was it.
Yep.
I never
went back after that?
Never went back. I never took the drugs again. I just basically, it just ended right at that point. I crossed that door, and that was it. I was done. Still had the occasional drink and stuff like that, but I never really got drunk again. It was, but yeah, that was the beginning of the change.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've had an incredible life by the sound of it, Richard. What's most important to you now?
Family.
Why is that?
Family and God.
Yeah.
Well, if I hadn't have come back to God, I wouldn't have met Kat, and if we'd never got married, I wouldn't have had the kids, and I've got two just amazing girls that I would put my life on the line for them. So it's given me perspective. There's times where I look at people walking down the road and the sensations come back. Like I've always got those sensations of the drugs. I get flashbacks from time to time, not as much as I used to, but it still comes back. If I see somebody on drugs, it's like my arm will start itching. Because my brain remembers what it was like to take the drugs. So I see that, and then I see my family, and I see where God's brought me, and I go, nah, I don't want to go back down that track.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realise, but it's not until you've been down there that you realise how easy it is to go back in that direction. And I suppose that's been the biggest thing, is the devil just trying to just put that slight wedge in and just get me just a slightly off track.
Yeah.
Because once that's happened, and 10 years down the track, I'm over here when I should be here.
You drift away, yeah. Oh, Richard, thanks for sharing that. It's really
That's
good.
right.
Powerful stuff. And I'm sure that's not the end of the story. Thank you, Richard, for being so open with us. And I hope that was an encouragement to you. If you'd like to share an encouragement with Richard, or maybe something that stood out to you, please do so in the comments below. I'm looking forward to bringing you some exciting stories in the coming weeks in the Figuring Life Out Together podcast. I encourage you to subscribe to keep up to date with all our new episodes. And if you'd like to connect with me, please visit our website, haventogether.com. But until then, I hope that you're well, and look forward to bringing you our next podcast soon.